Harmless Dave here talking about real music from the big band era. Wayne King and his orchestra. This from a definitive book written by George T. Simon, a foreword by the great Frank Sinatra. Here's how Wayne King is described. The kids may have wanted Glenn Miller, the swingers Count Basie, the squares Sammy Kaye, and the Blue Bloods Meyer Davis. But for the 65 and over clubs, the big band had to be Wayne King's. The gout, arthritis, varicose veins, and even bunions seemed to disappear whenever the Waltz King emitted those lovely, soft, satiny sounds that brought back the reassuring aura of the wondrous yesteryears, brought it back simply and gracefully, and with all the color and excitement of a bowl of stewed prunes. It hadn't always been thus for this bright, self-assured saxophonist. In the late 20s and early 30s, King had led a good all-around dance orchestra which featured a refreshingly light beat, this time in straight 4/4 tempo, and an attractive sax section led by his facile alto. The group played regularly at the Aragon Ballroom in Chicago, and it was there that Wayne developed his attachment to the waltz. During the early 30s, according to the big band buff Gary Stevens, a brother and his sister were manufacturing cosmetics in the back of their house. To advertise their product, they hired King and his orchestra for a weekly radio show, for which the band, including its leader, was purportedly paid a cool $500 per show. 4 years later, the Lady Esther Serenade had emerged as one of the nation's top radio programs. The brother and sister had a large factory, and King was earning around $15,000 a week from his top radio series. The program was ideal for the client. Kids in those days used makeup sparingly, but the oldsters poured it on. King's schmaltzy music, interspersed with poetry readings, first by Phil Stewart and later by Franklin McCormick, was made to order for elderly spinsters and matrons who bought large doses of the sponsor's powdered sunshine to spread over their fading faces. Always and generously featured was King's soft, reassuring sax. Had he any desire to revert to the more lively music he had once played, he managed to suppress it sufficiently to sustain his new image. He was a good musician. His band was strongly disciplined, and he could afford to pay his men enough to stay with him despite any musical or personal differences. Such a steady personnel made for excellent consistency if nothing else. King spent very little time in New York, perhaps because his ultra-homey style had less appeal for the more sophisticated dancers. But he did appear in many of the major hotels and ballrooms in other parts of the country, often attracting mature, well-heeled patrons. Having invested wisely in real estate and cattle, he soon became an immensely wealthy man. During the war, King became an army officer stationed in the Chicago area. Bob Eberly sang in his unit. So did Buddy Clark, who also made some records with King's band. After the war, Wayne remained quasi-active as a band leader, his career reaching an emotional climax in 1964 when he returned to Chicago's Aragon Ballroom, where he had established such a fervent following, to lead his orchestra on the lavish dance emporium's shuddering night. It was, according to a UPI dispatch, a bittersweet farewell. Grandmas and grandpas who did their courting under the Aragon's make-believe stars swayed to the strains of Waltz King's theme song, "The Waltz You Saved for Me." It was just too bad that all of their grandmas and grandpas couldn't have been there too. Wayne King and his orchestra, a big band profile. Thank you for listening, and we'll do another one coming soon.